يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين ولي الصالحين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين. أحبتي الكرام، طبتم وطاب ممشاكم وتبوأتم من الجنة منزلا. أسأل الله العظيم رب العرش العظيم أن يجعل جمعنا هذا جمعا مرحوما ولا يجعل من بيننا شقيا ولا محروما. أسأل الله العظيم أن يدخلنا ويلحقنا في الصالحين ويجعلنا من المخلصين المخلصين في سبيله وابتغاء مرضاته. أما بعد. Tonight's talk, inshallah, is one of great interest and deep intrigue. I remember when I was about 13 or 14 years old, we did an i'tikaf in the masjid during Ramadan. Although we didn't go there for Qiyam al-Layl or anything, we went there just to hang out. One of the youth, Jazahullah khair wa hafidhahullah, he took it upon himself to sit us down and to discuss this very topic. And when we heard the subject matter, the details, we were in awe. Our eyes lit up. And when it comes to matters of the unseen or the unknown, it's human nature to be very interested. يعني هذا من طبع الإنسان أنه ينتبه للغيبيات. We try to understand deeper into the unknown. And I remember when we were youth, this was a major point of interest and a point that attracted us to this deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this was one of the first times where I experienced the depths of the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Yani, if you look at the compilation of a hadith, a lot of it deals with the unknown or the unseen, the signs of the hour, matters which you and I, we don't understand or we haven't ventured into, or there were matters of the past before the Sahaba's time. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he had this ability to intrigue the people. And the topic of tonight is exactly that. And I need to remind myself and everyone here that when we are discussing umur al-ghayb, the unseen or the unknown matters, we don't go past the evidence that we have. It's very important, because if you look at the majority of misguided people, the people of bid'ah, they took the unknown or the unseen and they imagined more to it, they added to it, and they started to presume things, and they started to add, little spices and sprinkles here and there, min afkarihim wa awhamihim, from their opinions and their desires, from their sheikh's dream and from this person's thinking. Or la, nahnu naktafi, we suffice with al-Quran and Sunnah, and we stop where the evidence stops. We don't need to go to maybe it could be, should be, could have been. La. Bear with me, inshallah. If I told you that since the dawn of mankind, since the beginning of the creation of Adam alayhi salam, and we are all his children, we were all at his loins, there is no greater, no more severe trial than this trial that we are discussing tonight. Since the dawn of the creation of man, there has been nothing, no calamity that can compare to this discussion, to this topic. Whatever have you, none of us here have experienced World War I. صح? None of us have experienced World War II. صح? Perhaps you've experienced some strife, some war, some civil war in your country, some hardship, some calamity. COVID. Everybody experienced that, although it was just a flu. However, I'm not going to get into that. 3 years of hardship, economic distress. The economy, the world as we know it, stopped. Flights canceled, travel, everybody had to line up, everybody was marked and labeled and numbered and masked. And it was a disaster. The plague, I don't know if you've read about the plague, far more severe. And by the way, we're overdue for a plague. The plague resurfaces every, I think it was 400 years or so, the scientists were saying. The bubonic plague, if you read about it, it was a disaster. Hundreds, thousands, millions of people died. All of these calamities, the wars, the strife, the hunger, the plagues, the disease, the financial distress, everything, put all of that in one pile, this one tops it off. Yani, تخيل, just imagine what era we would be in, the time, the difficulty. Yani, subhanAllah, sometimes when you're feeling depressed or sad, and you lost a loved one, or you lost your job, you don't have that much money, everything changes in your life. حتى طعم الفواكه تتغير. Even the fruits, the change of the fruits and the sweetness changes. It no longer becomes enjoyable because you're experiencing some sort of hardship or distress. So imagine this experience. What will this be like? Sallallahu alaihi. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to safeguard you from this fitna. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would never complete his salah before the taslim, before he sought refuge in 4 aspects. We discussed this last week, and this is why I brought this topic tonight. What were the 4 aspects? Fitnat al...
I seek refuge in the trial of life and death.
The trial of life and death. Ahsan. Yes.
Hellfire.
Hellfire, yes. The punishment of the... Just speak of al-qabr, adab al-qabr. وَشَرِّ فِتْنَةِ الْمَسِيحِ الدَّجَّالِ. And the evil fitna of al-Dajjal. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Every messenger, every prophet that came to his people with guidance and revelation and decree from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warned about this fitna. From Adam alayhi salam to Nuh to Idris to Yusha, Shamuel, Musa, Isa alayhi salam, all of them, every prophet, Salih, Hud, Shu'aib, all of them, they warned about Ad-Dajjal. Not a single one of them omitted to warn his people about the fitna of this man. He is a man, by the way. He's not a jinn, he's not a beast, he is a man. And we're going to get into a lot of details. Now, when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he mentioned to the Sahaba, he said, ما بعث من نبي إلا أنذر أمته. Every messenger that came warned his people about this trial. الأعور الكذاب كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. الأعور الكذاب ألا إنه أعور وإن ربكم ليس بأعور. He said here that he has one eye that is completely omitted, and he is a liar. And this brings me to what is his name. His name in the reference gives an exact description of his being. Al-Masih Ad-Dajjal. This is his name. If he had a first and last name, it would be Al-Masih Ad-Dajjal. Masih means what? Mamsuh. The ulama, they differed. They said Masih is a reference to his eye, his right eye is wiped, omitted. Okay? Another opinion from the ulama, حفظهم ورحمهم, they said that يمسح الأرض, meaning he will overtake the earth. He will wipe the earth in its entirety. every square inch except for two places, Mecca and Tayyibah, Medina. He will visit every square inch of this world. And not only visit it as a tourist, he will conquer it. He will take over. All the inhabitants will be under his spell and his control. So, when we say Al-Masih, it is not a reference to Isa alayhi salam, because he is also referred to as Al-Masih. Why is Isa alayhi salam referred to as Masih? كان يمسح. He used to wipe over the أعمى فيصير بصيرا بإذن الله. He used to wipe over the leper, the person who had blemishes on their skin, and by the will of Allah, that person would have normal skin. Also, he was anointed. Isa alayhi salam was Al-Masih because he was anointed. كان ممسوح كأنه طلع من ديماس. You know how the Christians, they depict Isa alayhi salam as some white guy with long flowing hair? That's not him. He was much more beautiful than that. And he had this aura, this brimming nur. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he saw him, he described him, he said, as if though he came out of a sauna. You know a sauna? Steam? Naturally like that, beating. But it wasn't sweat. Al-Masih. Isa ibn Maryam alayhi salam. When we talk about Al-Masih, Al-Dajjal, the ulama, as I mentioned, they said his right eye was mamsuha, is mamsuha. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave a further description. He said, it's as though it is a dried grape that is in the socket of the eye. However, it's completely inactive and it moves around. Unable to see with it, by the way. It's a dry grape in the socket that looks like it's been wiped. If you took a dry grape and you pushed it down like a raisin, that's what it looks like. And it's in the socket. And his left eye is not much greater, but he can see with that one. His left eye has a milky residue on it. And it is bulging. It is bulged out, and it has a greenish glass hue. And he sees with that eye. So he doesn't have an eye in the middle. He has two eyes. He's a human being with phenomenal powers, with phenomenal fitna. Ad-Dajjal is a reference to his lies and deceit. Dajjal is lies and deceit. And if you look at the past peoples and the nations, and you look in history, there have been many Dajjal, many liars. And he is the last of them because he is their leader. 30 plus major ones, as Rasulullah ﷺ mentioned in the hadith, authentic narration. He said, لا يخرج المسيح الدجال, meaning the ultimate liar, the ultimate evil, manipulative, deceptive liar, until 30 small Dajjalun come out. And these people, they proclaim to be prophets. They proclaim to have powers and abilities and foresee the future. They exist to this day. They exist to this day. There's a woman, I don't know where she is, but she's making headlines online. You've probably heard of her. Your wife has probably heard of her. She's a Muslim, sallallahu alaihi. She's from the Sham region, and she's apparently a fortune teller. She has a big following on the social media platforms. When I say big, I mean huge. And she's apparently attributed to have predicted the ongoing murder and massacre in Palestine, not war. She's been attributed to have foreseen the big explosion that occurred in Lebanon. All of these things. And people are flocking to her and giving her money to read their future. Muslims. And subhanAllah, if you look at who are the most vulnerable, the weakest of our community, It's the women. The women. يعني أحبتي الكرام أوصيكم بالنساء. Take care of your wives and your daughters, because the woman's intrigue level is far greater than a man. We have 1,000 things on our minds. We're running after this dunya, and the woman's heart is full of all these dreams and aspirations and desires. So when they find misguided people like this, to tell them, I can help you find out who your true love is and whether you'll be happy. Women fall for this. They fall on their knees. And on that note, Masih al-Dajjal, when he comes, his greatest followers, the majority of the people who follow him, Yahud, the wretched cursed Jews, and the women. So he's referred to as a Dajjal, Dajjal meaning lies and deception. Kadhib is lie. Dajjal is like far deception, deep deception. Something which is profound in the sense of how wrong it is, but how effective it is. It's such a lie, but it's believable because it has context. So it's far greater than kadhib. Deep deception, deep deception. And when I'm telling you about this is not folklore. This is not mythology. We didn't pull this out of a rabbit hat or no. This is the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Subhanallah, when Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he mentioned to the Sahaba, this hadith is an Nawas bin Sam'an radiyallahu anhu wa radha. He said, ذكر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم الدجال فقال إن يخرج وأنا فيكم. Listen to this. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentioned to the Sahaba, he said, after warning them about him, he said, if he comes out and I am amongst you, I will protect you. I will be your guardian. I will protect you. This is why he is rahmatun lil alameen, salawatu rabbi wa salamuhu alayhi. This is why his atifa, his mercy affected everyone, from the weak to the strong, to the young, to the old, the rich, the poor, everyone. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the most compassionate human being. He said, I would protect you. وَإِنْ يَخْرُجْ وَلَسْتُ فِيكُمْ. And if he emerges and I am not with you, and he is speaking to us right now through this hadith in the sense, every man for himself. Every man for himself. Prepare yourself for this fitna, because I cannot help you. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is not here. He is awaiting in the next life. You are on your own. You can't go to the imam, to your sheikh, to mama, to baba. You're on your own. You have to be ready to face this beast of a man. You have to be ready to see the deceit and the lies and to stand firm upon the truth. You have to be ready to acknowledge and understand that time is the greatest fitna, and if you pass that fitna, bi'idhnillah salam. By the will of Allah, you'll be at peace. For every man for himself. Wallahu khalifati, he said, ala kulli muslim. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be your guardian, and is the guardian of every Muslim. Alayhi salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. فَمَنْ أَدْرَكَهُ مِنْكُمْ فَلْيَقْرَأْ عَلَيْهِ فَوَاتِحْ سُورَةِ الْكَهْفِ. Notice right away here, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is giving ammunition and strength and defense to the Sahaba, to the Tabi'een, to the Tabi'een, to us today. He is giving us what we need in order to fight, in order to defend and stand and be firm upon the truth, and that is the first 10 ayahs of Surah Al-Kahf. The first 10 ayahs of Surah Al-Kahf, and inshallah I'm going to tell you why that is. If you look at the tafsir, the thabat, the firm nature of Ashab al-Kahf upon their deen and tawheed, you'll understand. إِنَّهُمْ فِتْيَةٌ آمَنُوا بِرَبِّهِمْ. They were young boys, young men who believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increased them in faith. وَرَبَطْنَا عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ. كم من مرة تقرأ هذه الآية ولم تفهمها? Do you understand what رَبَطْنَا عَلى قُلُوبِهِمْ means? Do you know what aqidah is? This is how I learned it. What is aqidah? If you translate it into English, it means creed. It means the root understanding or the root fundamental belief. صح? عقيدة من عقدة, not. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes Ahl al-Kahf and He says, وَرَبَطْنَا عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ. And their hearts were tied upon the faith. So if you have a weak aqidah, that means you have a loose knot. That means you can be unraveled. That means your faith is weak. Because your aqidah is weak. Your aqidah is weak. If you do believe that Allah is everywhere and anywhere, your aqidah is broken, it's shattered, it doesn't exist. Ar-Rahmanu ala al-Arsh istawa. This is the aqidah of Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah. It's very important. If you believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not a physical, He has no place, no time, no being, your aqidah is demolished, destroyed. You have no knot. You're unraveled. If you believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no physical features which He described Himself, your aqidah is flawed. Just the other day I was talking to a brother and he said, I cannot fathom that Allah has a place and time. A'udhu billah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Ar-Rahmanu ala al-Arsh istawa. That's it. You can't understand it, but you believe it. Khalas. You don't need to see it to believe it. Mu'adham ad-deen, ghaybiyat. The majority of our deen is unseen, unknown. We believe. Khalas. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described Himself as having two right hands. They are not like the hands that you know. They resemble nothing that you can imagine. He cannot look like any of His creation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks. His speech is the most profound speech. It is the Quran. But He does not speak like you and I speak or any other creature speaks. So don't negate these aspects. This is aqidah. You have some Muslims today who have no aqidah. So their hearts are not tied. So when the DAJJAL comes, he will unravel them. And this is why even if you memorize the first 10 ayahs of Surah Al-Kahf, you don't have the aqidah that Ahl al-Kahf had, that firm faith. You didn't tie your heart with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're gone. You're gone. He's going to come and you're going to be like, wow. Most of us have already gone just because of a film, a movie, a show, a sporting event. We're gone. We forgot our salah. We forgot our families because of a light show. So you think you're going to face the DAJJAL, Al-Masih al-DAJJAL, and this, you're going to stand your ground with the truth? No. Be very careful. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فليقرأ عليه فواتح سورة الكهف فإنها جواركم من فتنته. قلنا, listen to this, it gets more interesting. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum wa ardahum jazahumullahu khair, they always asked questions that were relative. They didn't ask stupid questions like the Jews, yeah? ما لونها تشابه البقر. No. Musa alayhi salam said a cow, and a cow, khalas, just slaughter a cow. They said, what is its color? How old is it? Where is it? Who does it belong to? Yeah. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they asked questions to further understand, to further practice. Practical. So they said, listen to this. قُلْنَا وَمَا, how long will he be on the earth? after he described this fitna that he will come and he will overwhelm the earth, they said, how long? And they want to see the duration to get ready. Because if you're going for a 2-day trip, do you pack the same things you would pack for a 2-month trip? No. The Sahaba were proactive. They weren't like me and you. You know, any wind that comes just blows us. No, they were firm. These people, they were ready. They were ready. They were about it. Okay? They had everything. They didn't procrastinate. So they said, how long will he be on earth? And they believed and they understood that everything had a beginning and end except for Allah. This is how their faith was. This is their aqidah. So he said, Arba'una yawma. Listen to this. He will be on earth when he emerges. By the way, he's alive right now. Alive and well. And waiting and ready. He is alive and well, ready and waiting. But when he comes out to begin the days of deception, the days of chaos and catastrophe, it will last 40 days. Imagine with me now, how much travel have you done? And you've gone back home a couple of times. You've been to Mecca, you've been to Medina, you've been to the Okanagan. It takes time to travel. It takes time to go see these places. You have to take time off work, time off school. This man will see every square inch of the earth in 40 days. Not only see it, he will take it over. He will take the earth, its entirety over, except for 2 places as I mentioned. And everything that is within those regions will be under his spell and his control. Kunuz al-ard, the wealth and the treasures of the earth that are buried deep into the earth's core, will emerge by his command. The earth will harvest and will bear fruit and vegetables, because he will come at a time of extreme drought and poverty. A time where people have nothing that's so scarce, and he will bring all the wealth and all the riches at his service by his command. What a trial. So the Sahaba, they asked Rasulullah, how long will he remain in this state? فَقَالَ 40 يَوْمًا يَوْمًا كَسَنَةً. One of those days will be as a year. وَيَوْمٌ كَشَهْرٍ وَيَوْمٌ كَجُمْعَةٍ. And another day will feel as though it is a long month. And then another day will feel as though it is a week. An entire week. And then the rest of the days will be as your days. There's another hadith where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentions, لا تقوم الساعة. The hour will not be established until time comes near. يتقارب الزمان. And it will be perceived that the year will feel like a month. And the month will feel like a week. And the week will feel like a Jum'ah. The Jum'ah will feel like a Yawm. And the day will go by as an hour. And the hour will be as though one of you lights a fire, kindles a fire. Yani one. Take this into perspective. The days are flying right now. We're so busy, we're caught up. We're preoccupied. Everyone is thinking about their finances, about their health, about their future education plans. We all have these long plans, صح? Very long. يعني الأمل بعيد الأمل. Your desire is so far. One brother, he was telling me, he said, you know, when I'm 65, I wanna go and live in a cabin. You're only 30 something. Allahu Alam if you're gonna wake up tomorrow. How do you think that far? But we have been trained. We've been trained to think far. Plan far ahead. Huh? No. During these days, because time is at a constraint, because we're so busy, There's so many distractions, every button you get something. Huh? It's called instant gratification. You click here, you get this. You click here, you get, so you just keep clicking and scrolling. So your days just go by. The hours just go by. Before you know it, you spent 9 hours on YouTube. What? That's my usage today, 9 hours. It happens to a lot of us. So, one video, 2, 3, 300, 3,000. The days just go by, the minutes just go by. There's no sense to them. So, during the Dajjal's time, you're going to feel it. You're going to feel the agony. Why? Think back now to a time where may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect all of you and give you long, healthy lives. Say Ameen. Think back when you were sick, bedridden. Perhaps you were hospitalized, some complications. You got the fever or the flu or COVID, whatever you want to call it. Those moments went by like days. You couldn't do nothing. You were helpless. وَأَنْتَ فِي فِرَاشِ الْمَوْتِ. You were sitting, reclined on your bed as though you were waiting for death. It was only 2 days that you had to stay home from work, from school, because you were sick, but it felt like 2 weeks. ساعات the hours as if though they don't even move, because you're in agony, you're in pain. صح? It's the same amount of time, 24 hours, but it went by so much slower because you were in pain. You were in distress. The Dajjal, the first day he comes, the first day is like a year, because the fitna, the agony is so severe. You'll see later what the Sahaba say. And then the second day will be like a month, dragging on. Like, if something imminent, dangerous is going to happen, something evil or imminent that is going to happen, that is bad, the moments are like so slow. There's an earthquake coming or a flood coming. You anticipate it in agony. And this is that time. The first day will be like a year. A year. Because you're like, is he coming? Am I ready? What do I do? Have I memorized the first 10 ayahs of Surah Al-Kahf? Do I know who Allah truly is? This is the question you're going to be asking yourself. Have I taught my kids who Allah really is? Because if this man comes, he's going to tell them, I am Allah. It's severe. And then he said, يَوْمٌ كَسَنَةٌ وَيَوْمٌ كَشَهْرٌ. A day like a year, a day like a month, a day like a Jumu'ah, like a week, and then سَائِرُ الْأَيَّامِ. And then the rest as the regular days. Fitna has subsided in a sense, but it still exists. And then the Sahaba, they said something amazing. قالوا يا رسول الله هذا اليوم الذي كسنا أتكفينا فيه صلاة يوم وليلة. They said, that day, which is like a year, will it be sufficient enough to pray as one day, in one night? Meaning, should we pray more? Because the agony and the anticipation, they're worried about the salah. يخافون ولكن كيف ندرك الصلاة? How are we going to perform our salah? Look at this. Now we have a soccer game, we forgot Dhuhr and Asr. Gone. Because the soccer game is how, 90 minutes? Gone. And then the after show, and then they're talking to the players, and then the stats, and then you're calling your friends, and you lost 2 salawat because of a bunch of guys chasing a sphere. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they understood the fitna is real, so they said, Ya Rasulullah, how do we pray that day that is like a year? Do we pray just regular? This is where their train of thought was. Not like us. And these are the people of Aqidah. So if you want to know if you're ready for Masih Dajjal to come, and you're going to stand before him and you say, Lasta bi Rabbi. Anta a'war. Anta kadhab. If you think you're going to say that, understand that you're on your prayer. That means you're on your deen, fam. That means you're praying every salah on its time. On its prescribed time. في الصف الأول. We're far. We're far. نسأل الله أن يهدينا أجمعين. فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا اقدروا له قدره. He said no, but take your necessary precautions and measures. Perform your salah and anticipate. This is the time that they know. The Sahaba are it's as if though they're planning for it. He's coming. Okay, how do we pray? What do we say? Where do we go? How do we defend ourselves? قدروا له. And then he said صلى الله عليه وسلم ثم ينزل عيسى ابن مريم عليه السلام عند المنارة البيضاء شرقية دمشق فيدركه عند باب لد فيقتله. This hadith is found in Sahih Muslim وقد صححه الشيخ الألباني رحمة الله عليه. I want to conclude. I'm not going to go into all the details, by the way. I want to conclude by mentioning to you the one hadith that caused me as a youth to be intrigued and interested in this fitna. And it is the hadith of Tamim al-Dari, hadith al-Jassasa, it's known. You can find it in Sahih Muslim, and there is a few variations in the narrations, but Sahih. Tamim al-Dari was a Sahabi, Jalil, radiallahu anhu warḍah. And prior to his reversion to Islam, he was a Christian, a devout Christian. He believed in Christianity, and he's from the tribes of the north in Mecca. And these particular tribes, they were known as very profound seamen. They used to travel the seas and the oceans, travel far beyond. Quraysh, they were afraid of the ocean. They were sand dwellers. Tamim al-Dari, in his tribe, in the northern tribes, they were proficient sailormen. And on one occasion, when he embraced Islam, he came to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam and he took his shahada. He became a Muslim. And he told Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam a story that would be echoed throughout the ages. A story that is so vivid, depicts so many details and accuracies that coincide, agree with the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. وَقَدْ أَسَرَّ النَّبِيُّ صلى الله عليه وسلم. He was so happy, أَسَرَّهُ ذَلِكَ. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, when he heard that Tamim al-Dari came to embrace Islam, and he took his shahada, أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمد رسول الله, he was joyed, excited. And then when he told him this story that I'm about to tell you, he was even more ecstatic. And he called to the people. He told the Sahaba to call to the people, as-salat, qa'im. Come to the masjid. Come to the masjid. They didn't make adhan, they used to make an announcement to come to the masjid. And they knew, the people, the dwellers of Medina around, that this means that there's an important announcement. Something very important that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam wanted to gather the people. And by the way, it was the men and the women and the children, everyone, a community that came. When they came, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam stood on his minbar. And he said, I have gathered you here to share a joyous news. A news that has brought me happiness, that has brought me joy. And he said to the people, he said, Tamim al-Dari has embraced Islam. He is now a brother. And he has shared with me a detailed story that I want to share with you. And this, I want to stop here. Look at how Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam taught the Sahaba. Many of the ways that we were taught as kids, it wasn't like this. We were taught sit, stand, eat, stop, go, play, don't. Everything is command, do, don't. Sah? There was no level of intrigue, there was no level of curiosity to build the person to conform, to comply. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had the most eloquent of speech. When he spoke to you, it's as though he was your friend for years. You know, sometimes you meet someone and it's as if though you've known them. They enter your heart. محبوب من عند الله لأن كلامه رقيق. His language is soft, is lenient. He speaks to you with interest, doesn't speak down to you. This is Rasulullah. And look at his sunnah, how he gathered the people to share a story. A story. If the Amir of the Qarya gathered us today, we would think something is happening. There's going to be bad news. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you can tell he gathered the people for good news, bad news, stories, i'lan, everything. And this is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So when you go home or the next family dinner you are at, tell your family, I want to share a story with you that made the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam happy. And this is the story. Tamim al-Dari, he narrates and he relates. He said, we went out to sea on a journey. Perhaps they went to explore, perhaps they were fishing, because they were prominent fishermen. And he said, the waves took us to and fro for a period of 30 days, a month. By the way, back then the ships didn't have engines, they were very basic sails. So you had to flow with the wind. You had to change the direction of the sails in order to go where you wanted to. It had a lot of work. All hands on deck had to be, 30 days they were lost at sea. فَلَعِبَ بِهِمُ الْمَوْجُ شَهْرًا فِي الْبَحْرِ. And during those 30 days, Tamim al-Dari and his men, they're Christian. So they're calling upon the Christian God to help them. They're calling upon whatever they believed in to help them. No help came to them. But subhanallah, through this ordeal, we understand that Tamim al-Dari became a Muslim and coincided the story of DAJJAL with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's hadith. This is a direct response to anyone who has no faith or no belief, the atheists and agnostics that exist. They say, subhanallah, you will find God when you're most in need, when you have no one else. One of my friends that I grew up with who embraced Islam, he had an experience like this where he had a traumatic experience. He was hospitalized, he was imprisoned, and he didn't believe in God. He wasn't born a Christian, he wasn't raised a Christian, he didn't know nothing about nothing. But we had told him about Islam, and he doubted it. But then he told me, he said, while I was looking out the cell in this little window, no bigger than that vent, he said, God, if you existed, show me a sign. Because he lost it. He had no one. His mother abandoned him, his father, his friends, no one. And then he said, I saw shooting stars. And he said, this can't be real. during this time of any difficulty, if you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will give you an answer. He will grant you an answer to prove to you something. But you have to be wise enough to see the sign. And Tamim al-Dari and his men, they were lost for 30 days. The winds kept blowing them, the waves kept taking them, and they had no control of their ship. And you best believe they were praying, they were asking whoever God, whichever God, and then they washed up close to an island that they've never seen before. They've never been before. And when they got to this island, they said this could be salvation. That's what land represents to seamen. When you're lost for 30 days and all you see is water and white water, when I say white water, because it's waves, larger than 10 meters sometimes. 10 meters. Hundreds of meters. And the ocean is deep and vast, and you don't know what's beneath you. When you see land, that's salvation. So they washed up to this island, and they were saved. Some miraculous, when they disembarked from the ship, they began to explore. This island, there isn't much of a description of it. Tamim al-Dari doesn't even know where it is. But we have a description of the first creature that inhabits this island. And he says, when we saw this creature approaching, we did not know where its head is from its behind is. You can't recognize if it's where the head and where the back is. Does it walk on 2 feet? Does it walk on 4? Allahu A'lam. But you can't recognize if it has a face or a behind looking at you. There's no eyes present. There's no facial features present. And he said, and he gave the answers to why. He said, the hair upon this creature was so thick that it resembled nothing like before. They've seen camels, they've seen horses, they've seen cows, they've seen all different types of creatures. But the hair on this specific creature was so thick that it had no eyes. Because if they saw the eyes, they would say that's the face. It had limbs, but they don't know if it's walking sideways, upright, or on 4. When they saw this, they stopped. They didn't want to proceed. And it was coming towards them. So they looked at it and they said, Ma anti, what are you? What the heck are you? Just imagine you're walking and you enter an island or a forest and you see a creature you've never seen before. And it's not small, huh? It's not small. It's big. It's big. And the hair was so thick, he said, that we couldn't recognize the front from the back. And to add to this, it speaks. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates whatever He wants. And for the people who have speculated that this is the Sasquatch or the Bigfoot, Allahu a'lam. Again, when it comes to the unseen or the unknown, we go by what we have. You can call it whatever you want. Call it Sasquatch, call it Bigfoot, call it Betnam Yahoo, whatever his name is. It's an ugly creature. Hair is as can be, and it speaks. So they asked it, what are you? Not who are you, what are you? فقالت أنا الجساسة. أنا الجساسة. I am الجساسة. And Tamim, he narrates, he said, we were afraid that this thing was a shaitan, a jinn, a powerful jinn that was going to overpower us. And by the way, they believed in jinn. They were Arabs. The Arabs used to seek refuge from the jinn. From the jinn, by the way. There's a story about Tamim al-Dari. When he was a Christian, before he embraced Islam, he was entering a valley, and in between the mountains, he wanted to camp. And the Arabs back then, they used to seek refuge in the jinn from the jinn. Because you know jinns inhabit these valleys in these areas. So he called out and he said, "O mighty jinn of this valley, please protect me tonight, because I'm going to camp here." Huh? وَكَانَ رِجَالٌ مِنَ الْإِنسِ يَعُوذُونَ بِرِجَالٍ مِنَ الْجِنِّ فَزَادُوهُمْ رَهَقًا. And then he said, you can find this, he said, "I heard a caller call and say that no one can protect you but Allah. No one can protect you but Allah. And seek out the man that they call Ahmed in Medina." This is another story by Tamim al-Dari, by the way. He was a very profound Sahaba. So when they saw the Jassasa,
What is a Jassasa?
it's a hairy beast. When I see it, I'll let you know. I've never seen it. But like I said, you can call it whatever you want. Its name is Al-Jassasa. That's how it spoke to Tamim al-Dari and his companions and said, "I am Al-Jassasa. I'm a hairy beast." Okay? And he said that we were so afraid of this thing that we thought it was a shaitan, a jinn. فَانْطَلَقْنَا, and we were trying to get away from it. But it told them about a man. فقالوا القوم أيها قالوا وما الجساسة قالت أيها القوم انطلقوا إلى هذا الرجل في الدير فإنه إلى خبركم بالأشواق. It didn't go into detail. Who are you guys? What are you guys doing here? Do you guys need any help? No. It had a purpose. This beast, this hairy beast, had a purpose. It said, "Oh people, go to this man who is in this area, at Deir." And now from this description, we know that this island had a monument. Deir is a reference to a monastery, a place of worship. Was it made out of stone? Was it made out of grass? Allahu A'lam. But we know from the hadith of Tamim al-Dari that this island has a structure upon it. And that is like a monastery, a place of worship where you can do rituals and you can have offerings and prayers. And it said to them, "Go to this place right there. Keep going. For there's a man that is awaiting you. And he is excited to meet you and speak to you." And I would have ran for the hills. And first of all, this hairy thing is speaking to me, and then it's telling me that there's a man inside that wants to see me. Tamim and his companions, they booked it, they ran. But they ran towards that direction, seeking refuge from this hairy beast, not knowing that what they're going to meet is far, far more severe. Alhamdulillah. فقالت انطلقوا إلى هذا الرجل في الدير فإنه إلى خبركم بالأشواق. قال لما سمت لنا رجلا فرقنا منها أن تكون شيطانا. قال فانطلقنا سراعا حتى دخلنا الدير. He said when she directed us, we had no choice but to run away from her. And he referred to her as feminine, by the way. It was just an unknown anomaly. So he said we had no choice but to run away from her towards the direction of where this monastery was, because she said there's a man there. Here we have a beast, over there we have a man, so let's go and see the man and see if we can help us. سراعا حتى دخلنا الدير فإذا فيه أعظم إنسان رأيناه قط. Tamim al-Dari very descriptively said, he said, when we entered this monastery, we saw a man, insan, that was so remarkable, not in a good way, someone that was like nothing you've seen before. Someone that you've never imagined. A'zam, meaning like the greatest thing that you've seen that is so atrocious. إنسان رأيناه قط خلقا وأشده وثاقا. So he said, and he describes, he said this man was chained to his neck. His hands are bound together and the chains are wrapping around his neck and his arms. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in another hadith, he mentioned that his neck was very broad. Very broad. And he was arid. He has a wide build. He's not scrawny. He's not tall. He was described as short. But because he was so wide, Tamim al-Dari described him as azim. Someone that you would take a second look at. You know, if you see a bodybuilder, you would check, like, this guy he's beefy. This guy was times 10, perhaps. And his arms are bound to his neck with chains. And his neck is thick. And his knees to his ankles are chained and shackled. All of them together. And he's standing and looking at them. A sight that, you can only imagine this in movies. And then, this is where it gets interesting. And by the way, I'll go into a little bit more description. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he described the skin complexion of this man. He said, Abyad, he's white, but he's more reddish in hue. White but very dark red at the same time. And he has hair that is not curly, but it is springy, like a snake that is sprung, ready to launch. Many hairs, and his hairs look like tiny snakes that are sprung. This is Al-Masih al-Dajjal. He even described him as a man that was currently living with the Sahaba radiallahu anhu. I forget his name, but again, he's a human being. He's not a jinn or a beast. He's a human being. So, حتى سراعا. And then they said to him, قلنا ويلك ما أنت. ما أنت. They didn't say, who are you? They said, what are you? Even though they know he's a man, they described him as an insan, as a human being, they said, what are you? They didn't say, man ant, ma ant, what are you? صح? ما أنت قال قد قدرتم علي. SubhanAllah, look at this. He said, you guys came here and you entered upon my area. And you see me, I'm chained and vulnerable in this position. So you have to introduce yourself before I introduce myself. Right away, you see how he overpowers his victims. Immediately, a very strong rebuttal, and quickly, he turned the table. They asked him, Ma ant? قالوا ما أنت? He said, you guys entered here. You guys came here. This is my hood. So you tell me who you are first. فقالوا نحن أناس من العرب. We are people from the Arabs. Simple people from the Arabs. ركبنا سفينة. We boarded a ship. And it took us out to sea. And we were lost for 30 days. And the waves were immense. And we were lost and we had no way of getting home. And we washed up to here. And we saw this hairy beast. And it directed us towards you. And here we are. Sah? And this is where it begins. And then he says to them, he said, he said to them, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find it in my notes here. فقال, he said to them, اخبروني عن نخل بيسان. He said to them, I want to ask you a few questions now. Tell me about the orchards of Baysan. Baysan is in Jordan, I believe. صح? في الأردن Baysan. And it is orchards that bear lots of dates, tamar. Back then they were like lavish, very full, vast. And he said to them, he says, tell me about the orchards of Baysan. So they said to him, what do you want to know? He said, do they bear lots of dates? Are the people harvesting lots of fruit? And they said, of course. This is the adah, this is what we've come to know. So he said to them, the time is near where they will not bear that much. And the production of dates from the orchards of Baysan has been documented to have been on a major decline, just so you know. And then he said to them, قلنا له يثمر قال نعم. And then he said to them, أخبروني عن بحيرة الطبرية. بحيرة الطبرية is in Beit al-Maqdis. And it is a water source that cultivates the agriculture all around it. Vast. And they asked him, they said, what do you want to know about Buhayrat al-Tabariya? What do you want to know? He said, do people still use it as a major water source? And they said, yes. He said, that water source will diminish. That water source will diminish. You see what he's doing? He's building up to them. He's pretending to be like that fortune teller, telling them that he knows things of the unseen and the unknown. And this builds intrigue and interest. And people pay money for this. Fortune telling, wal-'iyadu billah. And subhanallah, qaddarallah, it is by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that the Buhayra of al-Tabariya is on the decline as well. And then he said to them, يوشك ماءها أن يجف. أحسن. It will drop and decrease until it dries up completely. And then he said, إخبروني عن. I'm reading this backwards. I have to find it. When he asked him about all of these things, because he knew that they were Arabs, they replied to him with every detail that they could. And when they gave him the responses, it's as if though he had the answer before they responded to him. This was a major way of intrigue. أي ساعة الإقامة؟ 10:40. And then he said to them, I'm just finding it here in Durar. قال أخبروني عن عين زغر. عين زغر. قالوا عن أي شأنها تستخبر. قال هل في العين ماء وهل يزرع أهلها بماء العين؟ قلنا له نعم هي كثيرة الماء وأهلها يزرعون من مائها. قال أخبروني عن النبي الأمي عن نبي الأميين. This is where he got to the meat of the pie. He said to them, knowing that they're Arabs from Mecca, he said to them, tell me about the prophet of the unlettered people. The messenger who came to the unlettered, illiterate people, who was himself unlettered and illiterate. فَقَالُوا, they said to him, we've heard of him, and he has come out. And then he said, what happened when he came out? What did his people do? He said, they fought him, and they pushed him out and exiled him. And some of them followed and obeyed him. أطاعوه. فقال ألا خير لهم أن يطيعوه. He said it is better for them to obey this man because he has knowledge of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. قلنا نعم. قال كيف صنع بهم فأخبرناه أنه قد ظهر على من يليه من العرب وأطاعوه. قال لهم قد كان ذلك. قلنا نعم. قال أما إن ذاك خير لهم أن يطيعوه وإني مخبركم عني. And this is what he spoke to them about who he was. He said, إني أنا المسيح. The first lie, right there. And a lot of people that read this hadith, they don't catch this lie. He didn't say, أنا المسيح الدجال. He said, أنا المسيح. And just so you know, guess if you want to know. Who is waiting for the true Messiah, as they call him? Banu Israel, the Jews that deviated away from the teachings of Musa alayhi salam, the teachings of Yusha ibn Nun. They were awaiting the final Messiah. And when Isa ibn Maryam alayhi salam emerged, a newborn that could speak, fil mahdi sabiya, and he could speak at birth in his crib, in his cradle, who was born to a mother without a father, a fatherless child. They said, no, this is not the Messiah. This is not the Messiah. This is the child of wal-iyadu billahi zina. Because you see, the Jews, they have this despicable way that they believe blood is thicker than water, as they say. So they say that the final prophet has to come from the lineage of Banu Israel. This is their arrogance speaking, because they followed the way of Iblis. قَالَ أَنَا خَيْرٌ مِنْهُ. So when they saw Isa ibn Maryam alayhi salam, they denied his prophethood. They denied his message. They said, you are not the Messiah. We are waiting for the true Messiah. And here we have their Messiah. فَقَالَ أَنَا الْمَسِيحِ. ولم يقل الدجال. He didn't say, I am the Messiah الدجال. قال أنا المسيح. And right now, they know in their books, in their scriptures, that their Messiah, the same guy we're talking about, will only come when they establish the state of is not real, and when they establish the Haykal, the Temple Mount, that's when he will come. And that's when they're going to bow down to him and follow him. And the Christians, by the way, they believe in this Messiah as well. They call him the Antichrist. Because they know that Jesus, Isa alayhi salam, is going to come to end the Antichrist. But subhanAllah, the irony is this: we're always in the middle. نحن دائما في الوسط أمة وسطة. We know who he is and we know who Isa alayhi salam is. La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has favored and honored you. You can already see through this. So get ready, because the Jews right now are preparing for this. They're preparing for their God. You look at the dollar bill with the one eye, everything. Yes, I'm not a superstitious person, but I know that they believe in this. وَيَنْتَظِرُونَ. And they are preparing for him to come, because you think he's just going to come out of thin air like that and emerge? All of these years of entertainment and build up of lies and deception, to the point where they have changed your idea of what good and bad is. To the point where they have lied to us, and they have changed what the idea, the common understanding of what beauty is, what honor is, what a family is, what a male is, what a female is. Deception, deception, deception. Until their God, their Messiah, emerges with the ultimate deception. فَقَالَ إِنِّي أَنَا الْمَسِيحِ وَإِنِّي أُوشِكُ أن يؤذن لي فأخرج فأسير في الأرض فلا أدع قرية إلا هبطتها في 40 ليلة. He said, I am the Messiah, and it is near the time is very near where I will be permitted to go about my way, to go and overwhelm the earth in 40 days, in 40 nights. I will overwhelm the earth except for 2 places which I can never enter. حرموا عليه. They're haram for him. Mecca and Taibah. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he completed the story, he took his staff, he had a staff, and he stamped, he was stomping on the minbar with his staff. فقال هذه طيبة هذه طيبة. It's Allah أن يجعلنا من الهادين المهديين ويحمينا من فتنة المسيح الدجال ويثبتنا على الحق ويتوفنا على ذلك ويجعلنا من المخلصين الراضين المرضيين الهادين المهديين. سبحانك الله وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Next week, inshallah, we're going to go into some further details. There's a lot more details, inshallah, from the Sunnah that we can discuss. Bi'idhnillah. If you have any questions, you can feel free to come and ask, inshallah. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.